I have Parkinson's. I'm not drunk.
Stop resisting!
You just handcuffed a sick man for picking up his prescription.
The pharmacy parking lot security camera captured everything, every word, every tremor, every second. And Officer Jason Merrick had absolutely no idea that the elderly man he was about to handcuff had spent 31 years as a federal medical examiner. The man standing beside the silver sedan wasn't drunk, he wasn't erratic, he wasn't dangerous. He was Walter Grimes, and he had just picked up the medication that kept him functional. He had diagnosed causes of death for 3 administrations. He had testified as an expert witness in over 200 federal cases. He had trained the very officers who now populated this department. And now he was about to become the plaintiff in a lawsuit that would cost the city $1,200,000 and end multiple careers. Before we go deeper into this story, I need you to do one thing right now. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from, your country, your city, wherever you are, and if you believe that a medical condition should never be mistaken for a crime, hit that subscribe button, because this story gets worse before it gets better, and you need to see all of it. Walter Grimes was not someone who invited attention. At 71 years old, he had lived a quiet life since retiring from federal service. He had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease 4 years earlier. He managed it with medication, routine, and dignity. His tremors were visible, but controlled. His speech was slightly slow but precise. His mind was as sharp as it had ever been. That Tuesday afternoon, Walter had driven himself to the pharmacy 3 blocks from his home, something he did every 3 weeks. Same pharmacy, same parking spot, same routine. He had collected his prescription, exchanged a few words with the pharmacist who knew him by name, and walked back to his car. He was placing the pharmacy bag on the hood while he searched for his keys when he heard the voice behind him. "Sir, step away from the vehicle." Walter turned slowly. A uniformed officer was approaching, posture rigid, expression locked. Officer Jason Merrick was 34 years old, 6 years on the force, responding to a call about a man acting erratically in the pharmacy parking lot. The description was brief: elderly male, stumbling, possibly intoxicated near a vehicle. That was the entire report. No mention of threatening behavior, no report of disturbance, just an old man who moved differently than people expected. Merrick had decided Walter was the erratic person. Walter kept his hands visible, cane in his left hand, keys in his right. "Is there a problem, officer?" "Sir, you were stumbling and appears disoriented. Have you consumed any alcohol today?" Walter's mind processed exactly what was happening. He had seen this kind of assumption before. Not on the street, in courtrooms, in case files, in the autopsies of people whose medical emergencies had been fatally misread. "Officer, I have Parkinson's disease." "What you're observing is a neurological symptom, not intoxication. I just collected my prescription from inside. The pharmacist can confirm I was lucid and coherent 30 seconds ago." Merrick didn't move. "Sir, I need you to put down the cane and show me your hands." Walter felt something shift inside him. Not panic, not anger, recognition. "If I put down this cane, I will fall. I cannot stand unsupported. That's not resistance, that's physics. And I'd ask you to look at the bracelet on my right wrist before this goes any further. Have you ever watched someone's medical condition be mistaken for a crime? Type yes or no in the comments right now." Merrick glanced at the bracelet. He looked back at Walter. "Sir, I need you to cooperate with my investigation." "An investigation into what specific behavior?" Walter asked quietly. "Because standing beside my own vehicle with a valid prescription in a pharmacy parking lot is not criminal activity." "What reasonable suspicion do you have?" Merrick didn't answer. He had received a call. He had found someone matching the description. That had always been enough before. "You're being uncooperative," Merrick said. "I'm being precise," Walter replied. "There's a difference. And I'd strongly encourage you to call your supervisor before this situation develops any further." Merrick made his decision. The same decision officers make when they've gone too far to go back. He reached for his handcuffs. "Sir, turn around and place your hands behind your back." "On what charge?" "Disorderly conduct and resisting." Walter looked at him for a long moment. His hands were trembling. His voice was not. "Officer, my name is Walter Grimes. I am a retired federal medical examiner with 31 years of service. I have diagnosed over 4,000 cases in this state. I have testified before federal judges. I have trained law enforcement personnel on the medical indicators that distinguish neurological conditions from intoxication. And I need you to understand that every second of this is being recorded, that you have no probable cause, and that you are about to make the most consequential mistake of your career." Merrick snapped the handcuffs on. The pharmacy bag slid off the hood. The prescription bottles scattered across the pavement. 3 orange bottles. His name printed clearly on every label. His diagnosis printed clearly on every label. Merrick looked down at them. He looked at the medical bracelet. His face changed, but the cuffs were already on. Do you think Merrick should have stopped the moment he saw that medical bracelet? Tell me in the comments. Walter was walked to the patrol car with the quiet dignity of a man who had spent 3 decades in rooms where composure was the only currency that mattered. He didn't resist. He didn't raise his voice. He simply walked slowly, carefully, because without his cane, the ground was unreliable, and sat in the back seat of the patrol car. His mind was already building the case. The drive to the station took 9 minutes. Merrick didn't speak. Walter didn't either. At the processing desk, Officer Sandra Keene, a 14-year veteran, began the standard procedure. When she opened Walter's wallet to catalog his belongings, she found his Federal Service identification, his medical examiner credentials, his expert witness certification card. She looked at the ID. She looked at Walter. She looked at Merrick. "Where did you pick him up?" "Pharmacy on Caldwell," acting erratically. "What was he doing?" "Loading his car." He had a cane. Keene's expression didn't change, but her eyes went somewhere cold. "Did you read his bracelet?" Merrick said nothing. Keene walked directly to the watch commander's office and closed the door behind her. Captain Diane Howell had served 23 years. She had managed complicated arrests. She had navigated difficult situations. But when Keene placed federal medical examiner credentials on her desk, her stomach dropped. "Where is he?" "Processing area." Merrick brought him in. Disorderly conduct. Howell stood up immediately. She walked to the processing area. She looked at Walter sitting perfectly still in the holding chair, trembling slightly, hands folded, expression unreadable. She walked back to her office and made a phone call. The call lasted 4 minutes. When she came back, she looked like the conversation had cost her something she couldn't replace. "Mr. Grimes." "I'm Captain Howell. I apologize for this. You're being released immediately." "What were the charges?" Walter asked. "Those are being reviewed. I want the original call report, the body camera footage, Officer Merrick's written probable cause statement, the booking report, all of it. Tonight." Howell nodded. "You'll have everything tonight." There was no negotiation in Walter's voice. Howell had heard that tone before. Not in this building, in courtrooms, from expert witnesses who had already decided what the evidence showed. Walter was uncuffed. His belongings were returned. His cane was handed back to him. Captain Howell personally walked him to the exit and apologized twice more before he reached the door. Walter arrived home at 5:22 in the evening. He had been detained for 1 hour and 47 minutes. He sat in his kitchen for a long moment. Then he picked up his phone. The first call went to his attorney. The second call went to the Department of Justice. The third call went to the Medical Examiners Association he had led for 11 years. By Wednesday morning, the incident was being discussed at levels that made the police chief's phone ring before 7 a.m. The chief called Walter personally to apologize. Walter listened. Then he told him the lawsuit had already been drafted. The filing was 18 pages. It cited failure to recognize a protected medical condition, unlawful detention, unlawful arrest, violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and negligent training. It named Officer Merrick individually. It named the department. It named the city. The city attorney reviewed the parking lot security footage. She watched the prescription bottles scatter across the pavement. She watched Merrick look at the medical bracelet after the cuffs were already on. She called an emergency meeting. "This is indefensible," she said. "We arrested a federal medical examiner for having Parkinson's disease in a pharmacy parking lot while he was picking up his medication. We settle. Today, if possible." But before negotiations could begin, the footage reached the media. The pharmacy security camera video was posted online within 48 hours. Within a day, it had 4 million views. Within 5 days, it had been seen by over 18 million people. Medical professionals shared it. Disability rights organizations used it. Legal scholars broke down every violation frame by frame. Parkinson's advocacy groups made it required viewing for their community education programs. The department opened an internal investigation. The findings took 5 weeks. The call that initiated everything had come from another customer who thought Walter looked unsteady and assumed the worst. There was no threatening behavior reported, no disturbance. Just an assumption about what unsteady means. Merrick had acted on that assumption without asking a single medical question, without reading the bracelet until it was too late, without calling a supervisor, without considering any explanation other than the first one his assumptions offered. The investigation also found something else. Over the previous 4 years, Merrick had stopped elderly individuals at a rate significantly above department average. His incident reports showed a pattern of misidentifying medical symptoms as behavioral problems. The pattern had existed for years. Nobody had looked. Nobody had connected anything. Officer Jason Merrick was terminated 8 weeks after the incident. The termination letter cited unlawful detention, unlawful arrest, failure to identify a medical condition, violation of ADA compliance protocols, and conduct unbecoming an officer. Merrick's union reviewed the footage and told him what everyone else was already saying. The bracelet is visible. The prescription bottles are on the ground. The pharmacist is on record confirming his condition. You have no defense. Merrick did not appeal. The Department of Justice opened a broader investigation into the department's training protocols around medical conditions and disability recognition. Their report, released 7 months later, found systemic gaps in how officers were trained to distinguish medical emergencies from behavioral issues. The reforms that followed were comprehensive. Mandatory medical awareness training for all officers. Updated stop protocols requiring medical assessment before behavioral assessment in cases involving visible physical symptoms. A civilian disability advisory board with real authority. Federal oversight for 2 years. Walter's lawsuit settled 11 months after the arrest. The settlement was $1,200,000. Walter donated a significant portion to Parkinson's disease advocacy organizations, and the remainder to a fund that provides legal assistance to individuals with disabilities who experience law enforcement misconduct. "I don't want the money," he told the one reporter he agreed to speak with. "I want the next officer who sees someone trembling to ask one question before reaching for handcuffs. Are you okay?" That's all. 2 words. That's what this cost $1.2 million to teach. The pharmacy security footage became training material in police academies across the state. It was used in disability rights law courses. It was shown at medical conferences as an example of what happens when assumption replaces assessment. Jason Merrick never worked in law enforcement again. He gave one brief statement to a local outlet saying he had followed his training and that the situation had been unclear. The reporter asked him what he saw when he looked at the medical bracelet. Merrick didn't answer. Walter Grimes returned to his routine. Same pharmacy, same parking spot, same prescription. Colleagues from his federal service years said the experience hadn't broken him. It had clarified him. In private, Walter has said that what happened to him wasn't exceptional. It happens every day to people with Parkinson's, with epilepsy, with autism, with diabetes, with conditions that look like something else to someone who never thought to ask. The difference was the camera, the credentials, and the fact that he knew exactly what his rights were and exactly how to protect them. Not everyone does. That's why he wanted the footage public. That's why he directed the settlement where he did. So the next person trembling in a parking lot, without credentials, without legal knowledge, without a name that commands attention, might still be met with a question instead of handcuffs. Are you okay? 2 words. That's the whole lesson. What's your biggest takeaway from Walter's story? Drop it in the comments below. And if this changed how you think about what we assume when we see someone who moves differently, share it with someone who needs to see it. Subscribe if you haven't. We tell the stories that need to be told. Drop a comment. Do you think $1.2 million was enough? What does real accountability look like to you? See you in the next one.